and welcome to my channel. Today's story takes place in Silver Lake neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. It is about Rosalind Goodrich Bates, her place in history, and her property. I am including it in my Stigmatized property series because honestly, it seems like law enforcement gave up on trying to solve her murder, and it is shameful. I'm going to talk about Rosalind first, then get into her property. Rosalind Goodrich Bates was born on July 29, 1894, in El Salvador to American parents who were both doctors. Her father was born in Mexico but was a U.S. citizen. Her mother was born in Texas. Rosalind's mother was an advocate for women's rights. Rosalind spent her childhood and teen years growing up in Arizona. She followed in her mother's footsteps, advocating for women. She fought for international adoptions, immigration, and citizenship changes. Rosalind, shown here in her younger days, passed the bar exam in both California and Mexico. She had her own law practice by 1926, and one of her sons was a partner in the firm until his death in 1958. She was part of the National Association of Women's Lawyers. She is pictured here on the far left at an event in 1935 for the National Association. In 1944, she was one of two founders in the International Federation of Women Lawyers. For whatever reason, they referred to her as Linda, with her last name spelled wrong under her picture, but in the article they spelled her name properly. She also temporarily filled in as a judge. Within the 12 months before her death, Rosalind had traveled to Japan speaking on rights of women. Here she is in the middle in an article published January of 1961, 11 months before her death. She was a writer in publications for women lawyers. She was featured several times in the paper and often a guest speaker at events she advocated for. She had many more accomplishments you can find on her Wikipedia page. Her family history is fascinating. At the time of her death, she was a lawyer for domestic relations court, known today as family court. She dealt in child custody, estates, divorce, and other domestic issues. As I mentioned, Rosalind lived in Silver Lake neighborhood of Los Angeles. She had recently hosted an Australian lawyer at her home, and the paper listed her address on September 28, 1961. Probably not a good idea, considering the type of law she practiced. November 14, 1961, around 11 a.m., 67-year-old Rosalind was found dead by her secretary. The secretary, shown here, went to Rosalind's home after she failed to show up for court. Rosalind had 3 cases scheduled for the day. The secretary entered through an unlocked side door and found Rosalind lying in the hallway between her bedroom and bathroom. She was wearing the same clothes she had been seen in the day before and was still wearing her glasses. Police arrived and determined Rosalind had been shot twice. However, there were conflicting reports. One said she was shot in the temple. Another said she was shot in the left jaw. The only consistent shot was one in the back that pierced her heart. This crime scene photo shows a diagram reconstructing what police believed happened. The shooter was approximately 10 to 12 feet away, standing in the victim's bedroom, and shot her as she was coming from the living room and turning into the bathroom. The diagram of the person is supposed to be Rosalind, and the dotted lines are from where the shooter was. Shell casings from a .45 caliber weapon were found. One report said 3 casings, one in the bedroom, one in the hallway, and the other near her body. Another report said 2 casings, one in the bedroom and one near her body. Also in her bedroom was an empty cartridge case. Her date of death is listed as November 14, 1961. but that was the day she was found, not the day she died. The last time she was seen was on November 13th in her law firm wearing the clothes she was found in. So, unless she slept in them, her date of death was the 13th. Sorry to be a nitpick, but I try very hard to be as accurate as possible. The coroner estimated her time of death to be approximately 11 to 12 hours before she was found. Neighbors had seen Mrs. Bates arrive at her home around 8 p.m. on November 13th. She was on the phone with a friend around 8:45 p.m. The friend said Rosalind was in good spirits and didn't seem to be in distress. Her home had not been ransacked, her purse was sitting out in the open and hadn't been touched. No one heard screams or shots, and her dog, who was chained up in the backyard, did not bark. Police believe the shooter left through a back door, which was left open. No weapon was found. Police were trying to trace phone calls Rosalind had been receiving over the last 3 weeks. A female would call and make threats, and it seemed to be related to a property case in Riverside she was litigating. The couple Rosalind was representing in that case, shown here, were also receiving calls. It was highly suspected that the person making the calls was the wife of the opposing attorney, shown here. There was bad blood between the two attorneys. 5 days before Rosalind was killed, which was Wednesday, November 8th, Rosalind and the couple she was representing told the judge about the calls they were receiving, and Rosalind recognized the voice to be that of the opposing attorney's wife. Apparently, the judge did nothing, and neither the lawyer nor his wife were suspects in Rosalind's death. Police were looking for a man Rosalind litigated against in a custody case. The man hadn't been seen since September 10th, 2 months before her death. He disappeared with two of his 5 kids. The ex-wife said the man threatened to get Rosalind. 4 days after her death, on November 17th, Rosalind's son, who was a doctor and lived in Hawaii, and the widow of her other son both petitioned the court for settlement of Rosalind's asset and estates, which was completed by November 25th. Her assets and estate would be divided between the two based on the wishes according to her will. 5 days after Rosalind's death, on November 18th, the man who police were looking for from the custody case was found living in Sacramento, 6 hours away from Los Angeles, with his 2 kids. He was questioned and released. His 2 kids, ages 8 and 9, said he was home with them that night watching TV. He faced other charges for taking the 2 children without consent, but was cleared as a suspect in Rosalind's death. By November 20th, only 7 days after Rosalind's murder, police said with the clearance of the man from Sacramento, the case had settled down and it would be reduced to routine checking. That's right, only 7 days after her death, police basically gave up. I'm assuming they didn't find any fingerprints anywhere in the house or on the shell casings or empty cartridge that was left at the scene. They never said whether or not fingerprints of any kind were left behind. Something is seriously wrong here. Just because I tend to go down a rabbit hole when I am researching a case, I was thinking maybe fingerprint collection was a foreign concept at the time. Nope, not the case. The LA Sheriff Department actually brags that they had been collecting fingerprints since 1915, 10 years before the FBI. Not only did they fingerprint convicts, but they kept cards on file to cross reference. The reason I even questioned this was because in another story I am working on that happened in the 1960s in LA, the same thing basically happened. No weapon, no one saw anything, so I guess the cops are just done. I know in those days it was a male dominated workforce and large population of women were housewives. So is that why Rosalind's case didn't continue to be investigated? Were the men in law enforcement resentful of her fight for women's rights and in law in general? The only time she was mentioned again was very briefly along with other unsolved female murder victims in 1962. Then again in 1983, when another woman who was being recognized for her accomplishments as a female lawyer mentioned Rosalind as a person she partnered with briefly in Rosalind's practice. That was it. No more mentions of a woman who had been featured in the papers at least 8 to 10 times a year for more than 3 decades for her speaking engagements, honorary dinners, and women's rights events. She was forgotten about. They didn't check into any other person who might have been on the opposing side of the clients she was representing. Nope, it was just dropped. Remember, she had 3 court cases on her docket for the day that she was found dead. One was the Bitter Riverside property case, the other, a child custody case, not the one involving the man from Sacramento that was settled in September. The third one was a drunk driving case. Could someone involved in one of those 3 cases want her dead? Who knows, because they were never investigated. It was very sad and pathetic. So let's talk about her house. It was built in 1932. Although, from appearances, it looks like a 2 story home, it wasn't at the time. Whoever owned the home after it was built lived there until at least 1939 and possibly longer. This census record lists the home as having 2 occupants and 5 rooms total. That would have consisted of a living room, dining room, kitchen, 1 bathroom, and 1 bedroom. I am not sure when Rosalind bought the home. As you can see from the photo in 1961, the home is built into a hillside, so it gives the appearance of a 2 story home, especially with those windows that are low to the ground, but I will talk about that later. Here is what the home looked like in 2013. That little area in the bottom front left looked like it did exist in 1961, but in 1939 it was not counted as living space. Perhaps it was considered a cellar or basement. Sometime after 1939, the home was expanded to being a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom home. It seems like they made use of some of the attic space. Also in 2013, the listing said that little area in the lower left front was listed as a 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom studio. In 2013, the house was listed as needing TLC, and there were no pictures taken of the interior. The house had been owned at least since 1998 by the same person until 2013, perhaps even longer. It must have been in disrepair. There are 2 pictures that were taken out of the kitchen windows looking out onto the street. This is one of them, and this is the other one. You can see the iron grate that is seen in the front of the house above the studio. This picture is looking out onto the side yard. It is taken from above, which indicates that the 2 additional bedrooms and another bathroom must have been added before 2013. This view faces the side of the house. Across the yard, you can see a carport with a sunroom and jacuzzi. I am showing the exterior again from 1961. Look closely at the right side of the house. There is no window on the side that faces the yard where the carport is. In 2013, there was no side view of the house, so not sure if the balcony existed, but a window sure did. When the house was listed again in April of 2013, it was listed for $899,000. It did not sell until June of 2013 for $770,000, which was just over $100,000 below the asking price. It took 9 months for the developer who bought the house to renovate it. This is what the home looked like in 2014 after renovations. It was listed for sale in March of 2014 for 1.5 million, but 10 days later the listing was removed and it was relisted for 1.7 million and sold 3 months later in June of 2014. 1 million more than the purchase in 2013. Even with the renovations, I am sure the developer made a nice profit. I'm going to show 1961 again. No windows on the roof, no window on the side, and the brick fireplace and peaked roof is still present. 2013, no windows on the roof, the brick fireplace and peaked roof is still present. You can see the iron grate that sits on the roof overhang above the studio and below the kitchen windows. Now here it is again in 2014. The kitchen windows replaced. One was now a sliding glass door. A balcony style patio was added. The brick fireplace and roof peak was removed. Two windows added to the roof. And of course, at some point, the upper side balcony with sliding glass door was added, all of which made up the master suite. Here is an aerial view of the house. The side yard is where the pool is. That is between the living room and the garage. If you go up the stairs leading to the front door, you enter into the long end of the living room. Looking through the front door, you are facing the landing Rosalind was found on. The living room faces the side and it is level with the ground. As you can see to the right, the doors open onto the pool. Immediately upon entering to the left is the kitchen. It is one big circle on the ground floor and would be the 5 rooms mentioned in the 1939 census report. Taking a left from the front door into the kitchen, you can see the sliding glass door and the other window was replaced. The kitchen is L-shaped and wraps around into the dining room. This is looking into the dining room from the other end of the kitchen. You can see the dining room leads back into the living room, and to the left would be the landing to the bedroom and the bathroom. These would have been the 5 rooms in the original home. This view is looking out the living room doors onto the pool, jacuzzi, and renovated garage. So now for the landing, which is in the back of the house. This is the crime scene photo in 1961. Notice to the left, the wall is solid. The bedroom would be beyond that wall on the left and the bathroom on the right. Here is the same view in 2014. That solid wall is now a staircase which leads to the addition. Here is another view just showing Rosalind's bedroom is still there beyond the new staircase. Here is a view from the landing looking back toward the front door. You can see the bathroom on the left, and to the left would be the pool. To the right would be the bedroom and dining room. Here's looking out of the bathroom onto the landing. Here is the bedroom. This view is looking into the bedroom from the doorway. If you were to step in and turn around, you would face the hall, the same view the killer had when they took aim at poor Rosalind as she stood on the landing. The windows look onto the backyard and opposite side of the house from the pool. Now for the beautiful addition. Here is the master suite. Looking from the doorway, when you enter into a sitting room. Further into the bedroom, to your right, you can see the 2 windows that were added to the roof that faced the front of the house. You are facing the side balcony and sliding glass door that overlooks the pool. Here is the view from the balcony looking down at the pool. When you turn around, you can see the master bath, which is very large and has a walk-in closet. When you step into the second floor hall, you can see the 3rd bedroom up those little stairs and a bathroom to the left. Now down to the studio. It has its own separate entrance and no entry into the main house. Here is the view looking into the living room bedroom combo. There is a really small kitchen and a small bathroom. I was thinking how cute that is, but there is only one entrance, and that's the front door. There are only two windows, one in the front and a small one in the bathroom. I guess it must have passed the fire inspection though. The garage is very nicely updated too from the carport it used to be, and the pool and jacuzzi are great additions. Whoever bought the house in 2014 still owns it at the time of this recording in 2025. I think this home is beautiful. It is now valued at over $3 million. I am not even sure if it qualifies as stigmatized because chances are no one knows that a shooting took place there because 7 days after Rosalind was murdered, police stopped investigating, and 12 days after her murder, her estate was settled. In less than 2 weeks, her life, of all her accomplishments, was wrapped up. Rosalind loved to entertain guests in her home. She often had done so. Remember, she hosted the Australian lawyer. The newspaper remarked of how the Halloween decorations were still up from a party she had recently. The person she was talking to on the phone the night of her death was going to come over the following night, and Rosalind was going to show them slides on a projector from some caves she had explored in Mexico. Sounds like Rosalind had great times in the home until that fateful night. The night someone came in and ended her life, and the police didn't care enough to continue to investigate. She deserved better. I hope the current owners love the home as much as Rosalind did. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you on the next video.